Hi, and welcome to the Pit Lane, a Formula One podcast where we talk about everything Formula One. In this week's episode, we'll be discussing the 2024 Hungarian Grand Prix. I'm your host, Jordan Wynn. Alongside me is my co-host, Alden Kwell. How are you doing today, Alden?
I'm doing very well, Jordan. It's nice to talk to you once again.
Yeah, it's nice that we get to talk about one race instead of trying to combine two or three after weeks of being gone with each other. So it's kind
It's
of a
like
nice...
we've opened up a expensive bottle of wine and letting this race breathe.
Just a little bit, though. Not as much as the other ones, where they kind of go
True.
stale and flat.
But this was a good one, so looking forward to the chat.
Yeah, and then this is our first virtual podcast we're doing as well, so hopefully things sound great to everybody listening or whoever's listening. But yeah, so this should be fun. So bear with us as we kind of troubleshoot our way through it, but hopefully things go smoothly. Got a little bit of news with
why don't you start off?
Kevin Magnussen has been officially dumped by Haas for 2025. There's no official news of a replacement, but the rumor is, as we spoke about last week, that Ocon is probably moving to Haas starting in 2025.
That has been a rumor that's been floating around for a while. It was kind of believed that K-Mag would not return next year as his contract was ending this year. But we got official word this week that that would be the case. I don't think anyone's surprised, nor would people be that surprised by Ocon joining Haas. It seems to sort of fit both sides, but yeah, neither a great signing nor a great loss for Haas in losing K-Mag or signing Ocon.
Yeah, K-Mag has kind of been, he was their steady guy when Mick Schumacher was there after, I can't even remember his name now. The Russian rookie was there for like a year, 2 years.
Yeah, after he was released after the invasion of Ukraine.
Yeah, I can't remember his name. Holy cow. It wasn't even that long ago. Anyways, yeah.
That's
so
how forgettable he was.
Right. Uralkali, I know was the company name at least. But yeah, his dad's company. But yeah, K-Mag got, he was kind of the steady hand when Mick was there. And then once Hulk kind of came in, it seemed like Hulk kind of had the run on him pretty well and still does. But yeah, so K-Mag out of a drive, and Ocon, you know, if you've listened to our podcast before, kind of know our feelings about him. But yeah, so we'll see what happens officially, I guess.
And did Haas officially announce Bierman, or is that still not?
They did.
Official. Okay.
They announced Bierman last week, so the week before the Grand Prix, or the week before Silverstone, I think, or right after Silverstone, one of the two.
Yeah, between Silverstone and this one, I think.
Yeah, because we talked about it. We talked about it in the last podcast, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, I didn't know if we did.
And then the big name Sainz is still unsigned. I don't know. I don't know why he's dragging it out. I don't know why he'd want to go to Alpine, except to maybe be the quote-unquote top dog there, but Gasly's there too. Both former Red Bull drivers. William, I mean, I guess if he goes to Williams, it's two former Red Bull. It's kind of the same situation.
He's talking about Carlos Sainz here, yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it is interesting that it's taken him this long. He certainly had the pick of the litter earlier this season, but now that a lot of the other drivers have signed up with other teams, he kind of is running out of opportunities. Maybe he doesn't feel at the end of the day it's a big loss if he skips a year. I mean, it would be for his own, momentum and keeping his name active. But like, even if he was available in 2026, many of these same teams would want him anyway. So maybe, I'm just speculating, but maybe that's one of the reasons he's sort of dragging his feet, because he feels like he'll be in the same opportunity a year from now if he chooses not to sign with anyone. But like, even since the last time we've chatted about this, there's kind of been some rumors, maybe about him going to Williams, maybe him going to Alpine. Seems like the Williams rumors have sort of died down a little bit. Alpine was hot last time we spoke, but is it possible that he could end up at Mercedes again? That those rumors were kind of there before, but maybe he ends up going there because, I don't know. I thought maybe there were some rumors there this last weekend. So we'll see.
Yeah, I haven't. I feel like I've been initially. I was following a little bit more of Mercedes' young guy Kimi Antonelli, the Italian guy that they were rating very high on. At least Toto was, and I haven't really been following him in F2, or is he in F3 right now?
I think he's in F3.
Yeah, I haven't been following him that closely right now, so I don't know what his status is there, at least in that category. But yeah, that talk has died down a lot. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see if Sainz sneaks into Mercedes for 1 year and then opens up his option for 2026, even though I think a lot of these contracts are rolling into at least 26. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where he goes, because he's got to decide pretty quick here. Otherwise, he's going to run out of seats. Should we get into the... Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, no, you're absolutely right. Antonelli is in Formula 2, though.
Okay. Should we get into a Hungarian Grand Prix? I don't think I have any more news.
Yeah, let's talk about the qualifying.
Yeah, so we can get into qualifying quick. Q1, everybody started on dry tires, even though it had just previously rained.
Just a little bit, right?
Yep, it was damp. It was a damp track, drying. It was hot that weekend, so it was drying fairly quickly, but it was still a little damp out on the track. And the big things that happened in Q1, first session, Checo crashes after, if you heard our podcast previous week, that he needed to be very strong in form this weekend. And he ends up crashing in Q1. So he obviously can't qualify the rest of the sessions because he's out, brought the red flag out. And he ended up qualifying, P16, I think, in the end with his first run.
I think you're right, yep.
George Russell, he didn't go out for a final run. I don't know why. I don't know if there's something I missed, but yeah, didn't go out on a final run.
He was out there. He set his first lap time too early and then didn't have enough fuel for a second fast lap.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so essentially the team lost him there with the track evolution. I think he started P17 in the end after that. So really unfortunate for him on a track that's very difficult to pass on.
Yeah, it was an awkward first qualifying session. We should mention that Checo and Max, in the Red Bulls, they brought a series of upgrades to this circuit for this race. But not all of the upgrades were available for both cars. Max, I think, received all the upgrades that were possible, but Checo only received some of them.
And I think the big one was missing was the engine cover, from what I was reading.
The engine cover, yeah. And he certainly didn't have some of those. I don't know, maybe he didn't have all the upgrades after he crashed the car too, if they only had so many parts. But tough break for him in that first qualifying session. George Russell also, poor run of luck for both of them there. I mean, you could, with the drying track, the wet curbs, both, just before Checo had crashed in that corner, George Russell had a similar near spin right in that exact same spot, but he saved it. And that was the particularly dicey part of the circuit this weekend, just during the qualifying session while it was wet.
Yeah, I think it was that curb was still pretty wet on that side, and he rode that with his right side tires and turning into the corner, lost it, essentially. Pretty hard crash, too.
Yeah. Q2, not much happened that was sort of out of the ordinary for Q2. But at the end of the day, we saw a McLaren front row lockout with Norris and Piastri.
Yeah, that was big. It was interesting. I think Norris get it on the last run? Or he was leading. Piastri, I think, got within a couple thousandths. Is that right? Or hundredths?
15 milliseconds.
Yeah, a Norris on that final run. It was close. It was definitely close. So obviously great result for McLaren in qualifying, lock out the front row. Keep Max at bay in P3. Carlos Sainz was P4, and Hamilton started at P5, notably. Should we get to the fun part?
Oh, yeah.
So the race. It's more, I feel like it was interesting because it was a lot of inter-team drama and a lot of frustration with a lot of people on a track where you can't pass. But let's start with McLaren because they started on the front row and they had a great result in the end. Norris starts on the front. Norris starts P1, Piastri right next to him.
Yep.
Lights go out. Piastri has a little bit better reaction time, and I think is just better in the second phase of the start, or at least that's what it looked like. And Norris pushes him to the inside wall, up to the grass, and Piastri's too far next to him. Like, he's already up on his inside. He's got a half a car on him, almost, even going into the corner. Max is on the outside, making it 3 wide, going into that first corner. And Piastri ends up pulling it off on the inside, taking first place. Coming out of the first corner, Max runs way wide because they're 3 wide going into that first corner, runs wide.
He's almost in the next county.
Yeah, or whatever they use in, Hungary. But he's running off on the runoff and uses that to take second place. And Norris, I think, ends up 4th out of the first turn because Hamilton makes his way through initially, right?
Yep. Yeah, and then as they're going into turn 2, Lando ekes out Hamilton to basically like solidify that P3 position by that corner.
And what's important with that is that Max gained an advantage by going off the track and staying out ahead or moving ahead of Norris on that first corner.
Off circuit, yeah.
Yeah. So Max would have gotten a penalty, but he ends up giving the position back to Lando, I think, probably the next lap or a lap and a half later. Slows down, gives Norris the position back. So Piastri's out in front. Norris is P2, Max is P3, with Hamilton behind. So it was a fun start. I don't think there was any real contact, was there?
Not that I noticed. I seemed to notice Hulk came in on like lap 2 or something, or 3. Hulk came in really early, so I wonder if they ended up making like a strategy adjustment based on some damage, because he did come in really early. But yeah, as far as like you said, we've seen some pretty big crashes into turn 1 there at Hungary, just because of the
bowling balls.
Yeah, exactly. We have the one in the wet from a couple years ago, the one also just a couple of years ago, maybe in 2021, where there was
Stroll slammed his way in the inside on that one.
So many people get knocked out up there. It's a really long
run down to turn 1.
Exactly.
To a 125 degree corner.
It's almost a 180 degree corner. You're basically going back down the hill from the way that you came. Kind of crazy. Yeah, I'm surprised that there wasn't more damage. Drivers with the cost cap, I think maybe drivers have gotten really good about limiting damage on the opening corner, on the opening lap, just through sheer will. And we're seeing it play out. It's just everyone's so well behaved. But yeah, like you said, Lando was able to get the position back because Max gave it up. He didn't want to at first, and he was already getting pretty heated with his race engineer after this incident, and that just really, I think, set him off for the rest of the race, because he never settled into the race. He never calmed down. He was just like, he was at 100 from the beginning here. Basically from the lap 1 incident all the way through the end. He just was not having a good day.
Yeah, and he's P3 at this point. So for somebody that the past year and a half almost has been winning just about everything, that's a tough position to be in, but here we are. But let's stick with McLaren for now, at least, because they were the huge talking point, I think, for this race. Yeah. So it's basically McLaren is clearly the fastest car on track, and it's not close. Piastri's pulling away. Norris is pulling away from Max. I don't know how big of a gap he's got at the end of the first stint, but I think Norris pits first at the first stint, or the first set of pit stops. He pits, and then Piastri pits the next lap, which is fine. because I think Piastri had a big enough gap to Norris where Norris wouldn't undercut him. And so Piastri stays ahead throughout the first stint and going into the second stint.
Yep.
So it's 2-stop race for these guys. The second set of pit stops, I think Hamilton is like 7 or 8 seconds behind Norris. Does that sound accurate? At the time of pit stops,
maybe like 5 or 6, but he was some distance back.
Yeah, on a track where the average lap time race pace is like what, a minute 20 or something like that.
A little bit more than that, yeah.
A minute 21, 22, 23. Yeah.
Yep.
Either doesn't, I mean, not a ton of lap time. And so Hamilton pits first out of the top 3. So to try and get an undercut and stay ahead of Max as well, who's in P4 chasing him down.
Yeah, because even though Max was P3 by the end of the first lap that we were talking about, during the first set of pit stops, Lewis undercut him and overtook him through the pit stops. So Lewis is now third instead of Max. Max is in P4.
And this is
like you said.
Yep, go ahead.
No, so I was just saying, like you said, Lewis comes in first of the top 3.
Yeah.
Resulting in a cascade effect.
And McLaren is concerned about Hamilton, who is 5-6 seconds behind, undercutting Norris in P2. So the next lap, Norris pits. And I think at that point, Norris was only a couple seconds behind Piastri. Maybe, right?
Yeah, because Piastri had some issues clearing some back markers, and he went off wide at turn 11, one lap, or he lost a bunch of time. So Norris is now like under 3 seconds behind Piastri, maybe like 2.5.
Yeah. And so Norris pits, and his out lap is quick. And I think Piastri came in the next lap or 2 laps later. I think it was 2 laps later.
Yeah,
because he didn't pit him. Yeah, he didn't pit immediately. He pit 2 laps after Norris did. Piastri comes out behind Norris after the second pit stop. Same team. So we're still on McLaren here, if you're following. And so Norris pulls out, I think he's about like 3 seconds ahead at the end of Piastri's pit stop. And by the time he gets his tires warmed up to temperature.
Yeah.
And so Norris is told essentially to give the position back to Piastri because it was a strategic thing to make sure they stayed ahead of Mercedes. And yeah, so they just wanted Norris to give the position back to Piastri, and that's the only reason why he gained the position. So Norris is kind of like, I think I've got this on merit. And so he stays out in front, right?
For multiple laps, like almost 20 laps.
Yeah, because what did they put on lap, like, I don't know, 51 or something like that?
Yeah, because there was 70 total
70
laps?
total laps. Let's see if I can pull it up here. Yeah. I can pick it up quick. Where did it go? I saw it. Yeah, Lando pit on 45. Piastri pit on 47. So 23 laps left.
Wow.
And Norris just is like, no, he doesn't really say anything on the radio. He just keeps driving. His race engineer is like, think about our Sunday morning conversations about what we're doing as a team. We're trying to catch Red Bull. You can't win a championship without your teammate and without the team behind you. And he's saying all these radio messages, almost like guilt tripping him in a way.
Yeah.
It felt like.
Yeah.
And I mean, in my opinion, I am 100% behind that Piastri should still be ahead at this point. That's in my opinion. You may have a different opinion, but that's mine.
No, I agree with your opinion. I think if Lando had wanted to win the race, he shouldn't have lost first place in the first 250 feet of the race. And that when McLaren decided that they were going to pit Lando to protect themselves as a team, maybe they had poor communication, but that was pretty obvious for all the viewers to be like, oh, okay, well, they're doing this They gave him the better strategy call to protect his second place, not to allow him to undercut his teammate. If they wanted to undercut Oscar's, position, that would have been something that they talked about in the meeting. So I wholly agree with you. That was Oscar's position. They could have just let Lando lose to Mercedes, and maybe they will next time since he made such a big deal out of this. But I don't know. Yeah.
And there's been a number of times where Piastri's gotten all the way for Norris with similar situations. Maybe not first place, second place, but further down the grid where, Norris is on a different strategy or he's quicker, so he just lets him go.
Yep.
So it was the right thing to do at the time. And so Norris here he's faster than Piastri at this point, and it's not by a lot, right? I mean, we got 23 laps to the end, and he pulled out 3 more seconds. He was about 6.5 seconds with 3 laps to go.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah. So Norris is about 6.5 seconds ahead, and his race engineer's do it now, essentially. You're doing it on this lap. And then Norris ends up slowing down on the main straight. Piastri goes by him. And Piastri ends up winning the race in the end after kind of a lot of unnecessary drama, it felt like, from Norris. I guess that made a good talking point.
After 30 minutes of drama where he tainted the, Oscar's maiden victory, if he had just let him by, after the first couple laps of the pit stop when the team told him to swap positions, we would have been able to talk about Oscar's, maiden victory. Instead, we're talking about an image problem with a driver who is having a hissy fit out on the circuit saying this is, that he somehow feels like he's got this on merit when the team clearly, gave him a better strategy call because they were trying to protect a 1-2 finish for the team.
Yeah. Which is, like you're saying, it's really unfortunate for Piastri's sake, because he kind of was he's clearly happy he won, but on the radio, he's thanks guys, blah, blah, blah. And he kind of knew what the situation was, obviously, because he was asking about it. He's the longer we leave this, the harder it's going to be.
Right.
So he knew the situation too. So that was kind of really unfortunate. So hopefully, they get things settled behind closed doors, but Piastri ends up winning, and that's awesome for him. He's clearly a really good driver, and I think he's had Norris the last couple weekends, Silverstone too, where they left him out late with the rain changing.
Yep.
And I think Piastri was leading then too, right? So
yes, he was.
Yeah. So it could have been 2 weeks in a row. Catastrophe for him, but I'm glad he got his win, and Norris ends up P2.
Yeah, that's the story for the McLaren 1-2. A lot of drama between them. I think a lot of people discussing this, we've made our feelings clear, and I don't think anyone's necessarily wrong if they want to argue that Norris earned back his victory. I just think that we're coming at it from 2 different places, and that's fine. There's a lot of disagreements out there, and we're happy for everyone to have their own opinion. But ultimately, this was not the only drama this weekend, because we had another Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen coming together light crash during the middle of the whole
we did
Norris Piastri drama. So
can we
get into it? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I got one more thing before that.
Oh yeah,
sure. This, I don't know if you were listening to the which feed you were on for the F1 feed. I don't know if you're on F1 TV or you're on ESPN, but
I was on ESPN, so
okay.
I was listening to Crofty,
the regular guys.
Brundle. Yep.
So the other feed was David Coulthard was on there, and he was talking about his situation, because he's, if you don't know, he's Piastri's manager or agent.
Isn't that Mark Webber?
No, Coulthard is, right? It's Coulthard.
It's Mark Webber.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay.
Well, maybe he's a mentor to him, but
maybe
Mark Webber is his agent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But cool. Anyways, so my bad on that if that's wrong. But yeah, I think that makes more sense. Mark Webber is, because they're both Aussies, right? Well, that was the thing.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. But anyways, Coulthard was talking about his situation where he was told to give up first for his teammate. I think he said it was like 97. I can't remember who his teammate was, but he was talking.
Hakkinen?
Was that? Oh yeah, it could have been. But he was talking about it, and it was actually a kind of good insight on what was happening at the time. I don't remember all the details, but in the end, he was like, "Yeah, I wish I wouldn't have done it because in the end, it was one race, and hindsight, right? If it was Hakkinen, then he's got world championship and stuff, so it didn't really matter that much. But it was just interesting as he was talking about it as it was happening, real time, and like what Norris was feeling is what he was feeling essentially at the same exact situation. He's like, no, I earned this, blah blah blah. But the team was like, essentially, you're going to be fired if you don't do this, is what it sounded like. Or that's what he made it sound like, at least. But yeah, I went back a little bit and watched a little bit of that just because I heard about it and I was like, oh, I should listen a little bit. So
That is interesting. I should try and find that clip.
yeah, it was kind of cool. Kind of cool to hear just from a driver's perspective in that exact situation. And I know we were talking about like the multi 21 with Weber and Vettel.
Right.
So that was Hamilton on the podium then as well, actually. So
He seems to be, he also won his 200th podium this weekend. So he's been on a lot of podiums.
yeah,
He's been around for, darn near 20 years. But, we can get into this when we get to our winners and losers.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately Lando made the right decision, and we'll get into the reasons why I believe why that's the case later. But yeah.
Yeah, let's get into the Hamilton Verstappen drama, huh?
Yeah.
All right, so Hamilton, as we kind of mentioned, after the first stint was P3 because he undercut Max big time. And I think Red Bull thought they would have the tire advantage with pitting later, and it just wasn't the case. Like the tire, what do you call it? The tire differential or difference? Delta, Delta wasn't as large as they thought it was. So he was having a hard time getting past Hamilton. Hamilton pit early again, or earlier than Max did, and undercut Max. And I think Max ended up behind like Charles Leclerc or something too.
He did, yeah.
After
he was
his
like in
pit.
P5 after. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so he had to make progress through the field. And kind of toward the end, 10 laps to go, maybe 15 laps, he was on Hamilton's gearbox for like 5-6 laps and just couldn't get past him. Hamilton defended. I think he went wide into turn 1. And Max actually got past, but then Max went wide into turn 2, 3. So it was kind of a back and forth at that point, but Hamilton was maintaining position. And then I don't know if Hamilton pushed him off track or just like pushed him a little bit wide, and Max got super pissed then.
Yeah, that was into turn 2. And yeah, there was some more radio drama between Max and his race engineer. And his race engineer just wasn't having it. Max was like, oh, so we could just push people wide. And his race engineer was like, well, you weren't actually alongside him at the apex. So, no.
Basically told him to quit being childish.
Yeah, this is wild. The radio, if you only watch F1 for the radio messages, this was your weekend. You were thriving. You had all the fuel. It was pretty interesting. Max was definitely tilted. And again, I think this stems from the first corner where he felt like he didn't need to give up his position. And he was just like simmering in his race. Also, we should mention it was extremely hot this weekend.
Yeah.
Like they were talking about like this track surface was something like 50 degrees centigrade, just insanely boiling. So yeah, I don't think that added to, or that helped the driver's emotional, stability during the weekend for any of them or during the race. But yeah, Max eventually gets an opportunity to pass Lewis as both Max and Lewis are passing a back marker on the main straight. They get into turn 1. Lewis is attempting to defend. Max goes down
real deep too.
Real deep. And Lewis is like, well, this is the corner. So in a corner we turn, and Max just like ends up
locked up
all 4 wheels.
Tried to turn.
Didn't turn at all.
No.
And they made contact. I think it was
right front, left rear.
Yeah. And Max went flying in the air. All 4 wheels came up off the air. and comes down super hard, and Lewis just ends up driving off. He's fine. He just makes the rest of the corner, carries on with his race.
Ends up
Charles
P3.
Leclerc comes through,
You're right.
and then Max is finally like coming back. He's now P5 again.
Now he's extra pissed.
Exactly. He's extra mad. And he wants a penalty for Lewis, saying that Lewis turned in on him. Max's race engineer's not having it at all, saying like, look, we're not going to get into arguments with other teams on the radio. Like, just finish the race, dude.
Right. It's already been a day.
Yeah, both of them just wanted to go home.
We're all sweating. Nobody's happy. Let's go home.
Yeah, Charles just sitting there like, okay, I'll take P4. And yeah, so that's kind of how that ends. That must have been like, what, 8 laps to go?
Yeah.
Say?
Yeah, it was like 8 or 7 laps. Yeah, it was pretty close to the end.
Because Max did try and come back against Leclerc, but he didn't.
He must have had some damage from that where he just didn't have anything left. I mean, the full lockup didn't help.
Yeah, he must have just lost some amount of grip through the tires. But yeah, so it finishes Piastri P1, Lando P2, Lewis P3 to round out the podium, and then Charles P4 and Max P5. A lot of people thought that Max would end up earning a penalty for that dive bomb on Lewis.
But he didn't.
The stewards, yeah, he didn't. The steward said for whatever, maybe did they warn him or did they?
Yeah, it was probably enough damage that he lost the position already. I'm guessing. I mean, he was within 5 seconds of Sainz, or Sainz was within 5 seconds of him at the end. So I guess a 5-second would have put him down one more spot. But that's my guess or inclination, is that no, he lost an extra position because of it. So do we need to punish him more?
But, yeah, we do. Because
I mean, that's fine. But it was an egregious dive bomb in my opinion. But
I would say it was dangerous. That was a dangerous move, or risky. Maybe not dangerous. It was very risky, and to potentially ruin someone else's race doing that, I don't know. I feel like he should have gotten a penalty. Not an egregious one. 5 seconds would have been fine. A penalty point.
Yeah,
you just can't be driving like that.
I mean, maybe they should have given him a penalty point, maybe just not a 5 second. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's allowed in the rules right now. I don't know, but.
The thing is that no one knows what's allowed in the rules anymore.
No, that's true. That's a good point. The other funny thing about this is, so the last time McLaren had a 1-2 was when Max and Lewis also had big time contact and Max went into the air at Monza.
Oh, Monza 21.
That was the last time it was McLaren 1-2.
McLaren 1-2 with a Mercedes in third.
Well, Bottas was third that race.
I think so.
No, Gasly was. No,
Gasly
DNF'd. Gasly DNF'd that same race.
Both races, yeah.
He did this one too. Oh man, history repeats itself, huh?
Sometimes.
Yeah. So yeah, that was the Hamilton Verstappen drama. We said Hamilton ends up P3. We can get into Russell here. Russell was P8, and he ended up with the fastest lap. I think he just started on the hard tires, carried that through. There was no safety cars. There was no virtual safety cars either. So that worked out well for him. He could go longer than everybody else, and then, just run his race after that. Ferrari, Leclerc, as we said, P4. Ran his own, I don't know, that was quiet the whole time too. Passes Max because of a dumb mistake, and ends up P4. Sainz within a quiet P6. And that's Ferrari's day. I don't know if you had any more to add there.
No, I think on a day when a team had questionable strategy calls, both McLaren and Red Bull, Ferrari's name's not mentioned that often here. Usually we're talking about them making questionable strategy calls, but the fact that they had a solid race, kept themselves under the radar, did all they needed to do, grabbed a bunch of points. They don't necessarily gain advantage on
McLaren.
I guess they gained points on Red Bull, but they didn't gain anything on McLaren, and I don't know if they gained or were even with Mercedes. P4 and P6 versus P3 and P8.
The fastest lap. So, yeah.
Yeah, Mercedes had the
And
fastest lap,
Mercedes had
so
probably had a
about
longer.
equal.
Yeah.
But you know what?
It's about as good as their day was going to get.
Yeah, I think so. Mainly, the main focus for them was trying to understand their upgrade package that they introduced over the last couple of races and making sure that they are able to correlate data that they had both from the simulators, the wind tunnels, and their actual like performance. So we'll see if they're able to gain any more advantages out of the upgrades for the Belgian Grand Prix, but they'll have some work to do over the break, I guess. Or I guess they're not allowed to work over the break, but
So after the break,
yeah,
work.
work.
But yeah, Red Bull, Max P5. We kind of went through his stuff with the other guys, and Checo was P7 after starting P16. I mean, a good recovery drive, but
Both him and Russell made great
yeah.
recovery drives to be able to get themselves into the top 8.
Yeah, with the top.
After those horrible qualifying. Ultimately, that means that it was at the expense of some other drivers who had qualified pretty well. But that's honestly where the Mercedes and the Red Bull should be. That's where, Checo shouldn't be P7. He should be higher than that, and same with Russell. But
yeah,
ultimately, good recovery drives for both of them. They had really good races.
This brings us to VCarb, our favorite name team acronym. Yuki was P9. I know you told me, you're like, oh, he was on a one stop. It's like, what? He went 29 laps on the mediums.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's insane. And this was after Yuki's entire car was destroyed during
Q3
of qualifying.
Yeah.
What a drive. Yuki, incredible. 2 points for a P9. He deserves more points just for that performance after qualifying and the race he ran.
Do you think Red Bull looks at him
now? The fact that Red Bull hasn't looked at him in the last 18 months, sadly illustrates that they still aren't looking at him. I don't know what more Yuki has to do to sort of like get a real
shot,
but
especially with how Checo's driving, yeah, he had a good race, but it hasn't been a good half a season for him.
No, I would agree. I mean, I hate talking about someone's job like that. Checo is not performing well. That's easy to tell, but he's not a terrible driver, and there's no guarantee that Yuki or Daniel would be any better. I mean,
we've seen in the past with Gasly and Albon, right?
Yep.
But I think the only real reason we're talking about it is because Red Bull's done this before. Recently,
they've been more they've been more ruthless. They've been the nicest to Checo they've been to any driver.
Yeah, and it's probably because he's not 20.
Right.
He's been around a while, so. But yeah, anyways, let's get back to Yuki. Yuki, great race by him. One stop, huge 2 points for them. Ricardo ends up P12. As we joked about, he had the completely opposite strategy of Yuki and pitted on lap 7 into traffic somehow. And yeah, his second pit stop was a lap before Yuki's only pit stop. And yeah, couldn't make any progress after that because we're in Hungary and the VCarb isn't as fast as, a Red Bull or a Ferrari or, I guess a McLaren at this point. So he was kind of stuck where he was and couldn't make any progress.
Yeah, unfortunate for him. He was really upset at the end of the race with the strategy call. He made it pretty well known, even though he wasn't saying a bunch. But yeah, tough for him. He had a good weekend.
He started P9.
Started P9. I think at the end of,
or P8.
At one point, he was the fastest during Q2.
Yeah. Yeah, he was flying.
Lit up or maybe that was Q3. But yeah, he was flying. But, ultimately it's not where you start, it's where you end. And he didn't get any points.
Yeah, his team didn't help him. But yeah, doesn't matter. According to the stat sheet. So Aston Martin, Lance Stroll was P10 and Alonso was P11. Apparently, there was some team drama here too that everybody missed. Apparently, Stroll was also told to give Alonso his position back and didn't. I don't know if you saw any of that, but yeah, apparently that's what happened. Not that Stroll's job is under any sort of line of fire because his dad owns the team, but so basically 0 repercussions anyways.
I did hear about this after the race. I don't know if it was later yesterday or today when I saw that, but that is interesting. Was pretty upset all weekend for a number of reasons. I think mostly with the FIA, but I think the frustration with Aston Martin is starting to settle in with him, with Alonso. Again, I don't know if he's pointing the finger at any single person, but this certainly will not help Alonso's mental state right now.
Yeah, and they brought some upgrades too that seem to be okay, but they're just still kind of in that battle with VCarb right now, I guess.
Yeah, the Hungary circuit seems to be a great equalizer, right? It really closes the gaps between a lot of the teams because of the shortness of the circuit. But honestly, there's a lot of parity between all the cars, all the teams right now. Stroll and Alonso P10 and P11, but they were actually in the thick of it. They were fighting the V carbs and they were fighting for positions out there. It's not like there were these huge like 20, 30, 40 second gaps out there. There was between like the top 8 and the rest of the teams, but Stroll and Alonso were fighting with the RBs out there.
Brings us to Haas. We got Hulk. Hulk was P13, K-Mag P15. Like you said, they weren't too far behind either. I know Hulk was in the battles for a little while. I think ultimately they're just not as quick as the other guys right now, at least at that circuit. But yeah, P13, P15 for them. With obviously K-Mag going out soon, but yeah, he's got 11 more races in that car.
Yeah. Honestly, Haas didn't have a stinker of a weekend, but they also didn't have a great weekend. No points for them. They've been getting quite a few points in the last races during the triple header. They gained quite a few, mostly with Hulk's double P6s. But yeah, no points for him this weekend. Yuki grabbed a couple points, so it puts the RBs ahead of Haas. So or that it extends their lead a little bit after Haas had sort of shortened the gap. But yeah, nothing crazy down at Haas other than just the driver announcements. But yeah, they definitely seem to be faster than Williams these days.
Yeah, Albon P14, Sargent P17. I think they both qualified decent. I think it was like P12 and P14.
Yeah, they were sharing a row on the grid, like
it's probably 13, 14 or something.
7. Yeah.
Albon, there was one radio clip they played, like you said, if it was a radio message. You like the drama with the radio messages? This is your race. Albon was upset at his team because of their strategy calls about how I think they were thinking about going on a different strategy after Albon burned up his tires because they essentially told him to. But yeah, he wasn't happy about the indecision with that. And Logan Sargent, I think he had a really bad start. Is kind of what I heard. I didn't see it. Probably should have went back and watched it, but it sounded like he just had a really bad start, and then that was essentially his race.
Yeah.
So unfortunate for him, but he's been qualifying better as of late, which is good, and not crashing, so that helps.
Yeah, Checo's crashed more than Logan lately.
Yeah, have you seen that like qualifying stat that's been put out there? Of I feel bad we keep going back to Checo, but his name keeps coming up. So like the head-to-heads of qualifying with Checo and everybody else this year, or like the past like 7 races or something.
No, what do you got?
Sargent has out-qualified Checo in 4-3 in the past 7 races.
Oof.
I mean, so is most of the grid, to be fair, but I think that's just kind of, you're taking a sample size, right? That's in your favor for the stats that you want. Yeah. But I think
7 races is a long time, though.
It is. And I think they're even on qualifying. Or like on the season or something. Or it's like 6-7 or 7-6.
Jeez.
Which, yeah, it's insane. But that's why the Checo seat keeps coming back up. Get us a Sauber. That was a super quiet weekend for them. Their car's just slow.
But they brought the most upgrades this race.
They did.
They did during qualifying. They did seem faster.
Yeah.
Than normal.
And that's fair. That's fair. They did. But I think they Did Bottas get out of Q? I don't think he did. I don't think either of them got out of Q1.
I think one of them did, but
Or
I'm
did
not.
they? Maybe it was just
Their race performance definitely still lacking. Yeah, Valtteri Bottas started P12.
okay. So yeah, Bottas got out. But yeah,
Yeah.
maybe the upgrades will show better at Spa than here.
You sure hope. It's a long circuit. It's a long race, long lap.
Yeah. But yeah, P16 for Bottas, Joe P19, last of the finishers. Alpine. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
lastly, your favorite team.
Yeah, Alpine. Ocon with a staggering P18 after starting P17, and or I don't know, doesn't matter. Poor. Gasly DNF. He had a hydraulic issue.
No, they Ocon started P19. Gasly started from the pit lane P20.
Oh, okay. So he had an issue going in.
So Ocon gained one position,
Oh man, I don't know what else this
which
team can
technically
do.
is the right direction. But when
Technically.
Gasly did not finish for the second race in a row, not good.
He didn't start the other one. He didn't even start the other one, and he started from the pit lane.
Well, he
And
went out
didn't
for
even
the
start.
formation lap, right?
Yeah, see, just what he didn't
And-
start.
Well, yeah, he did the parade lap. I consider that a half start.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he wanted to show.
He intended to start, right?
Intended to start. Sure, I guess we can go with that. Oh man,
Yeah, bad performance for Alpine. They really need to sort this out.
really makes signs wants to go there.
I come on, Sainz. You don't want to go to Alpine. Sign for Sauber. They're finishing above them, man.
Yeah, they'll be a works team, and this other one won't be probably.
Yeah, if they end up with the Mercedes engines.
But yeah, so that was. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna transition. Same thing. That was a eventful weekend. We had a lot of action at the top end of the grid. Lots of these battles that were in the sort of the mid pack and in the back, we didn't really get to see because there was so much drama up front, both between the McLarens, Lewis and Max, and then all the pit stops. There was a lot of pit stops this weekend because everyone except for Yuki did a 2-stopper. So a lot of stuff going on. Some of the drivers in the back ended up doing 3-stoppers, but what a weekend. A lot of drama, a lot of talking points. We got one race before the
summer break.
So yeah, who's your winner for the weekend, Jordan?
All right, my winner is Piastri. I think he deserves it. He drove the wheels off that car, and obviously the strategy didn't pay off in his favor, but he ended up winning the race anyways with Lando letting him by, as he should have, in my opinion. So yeah, Piastri, don't feel bad about winning this one. You should deserve to celebrate when you can.
Yeah, good shout. I'll echo that. Piastri's my winner of the weekend. Drove a great race. He qualified well. He's been a great teammate to the team and to Lando for the last 18 months. He deserved the win. So congrats to him. Hopefully he's able to celebrate in his own way. He's a pretty subdued guy anyway, so maybe this is his version of being loud and proud.
Losers. You want to go first? Or you want me to go?
Why don't you go?
All right,
you
I'll
go
go
first.
I'll go with Alpine. Another bad weekend for them. I don't know if you're going to have losers if they're constantly there. I mean, I don't know. It's just where they are right now. It's not great. Last couple weeks for them. Really bad for Gasly. Unfortunate. I guess more unfortunate for him. And Ocon not looking great recently either. So he's got a foot out the door over to potentially Haas. So yeah.
These results, the way that this Alpine team is sort of looking recently is starting to remind me of like Williams from 2018 to 2022.
Yeah, it kind of does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Can't finish races, can't start races, doesn't improve, not fast. They're not good in slow speed corners, medium speed corners,
straights,
fast. Yeah. they're just not good. They bring upgrades, they don't really do much. They're just so far behind, sadly. My loser for the weekend is going to be Lando Norris.
Ooh.
I think the reputational damage that this it could have been worse if he had not given up the position to Oscar. I think it would have really ruined his brand, his image in the sport. I think a lot of the drivers would have been fine with it, but Lando enjoys a certain level of media attention because of his personality, which is pretty bubbly, pretty chummy. He's a goofy guy, and he enjoys Max receives a certain level of media attention because he's ruthless and he acts a certain way, and not everyone likes him. And
and he's
maybe
fine with
that's
that. I don't think Lando would be.
I don't think he would either, and I don't think McLaren would be okay with it. That's not, I guess, what they want to do. So I think the Lando's post-race body language kind of illustrated some immaturity, and hopefully he's able to exercise that and sort of learn from this. And maybe he does need, maybe he wants to go down the ruthlessness pass, do what Vettel did, do what Max does, not give up positions, and do that. And that's fine, right? Like that's his prerogative. He can do that. He would have won the race. But at what cost? And I think, ultimately he made the right choice by allowing Oscar by. If he thinks he can win the Drivers' Championship this year, that's pretty bold.
It's not
McLaren,
not impossible.
Not impossible, no, but you just witnessed your team wash, multiple race winning opportunities down the drain over the last 5 races. Your team's been called out for poor strategy decisions. What makes you think that all of a sudden this is magically gonna just solve itself?
Yeah, it's not just the driver, it's the team too.
Right.
Yep.
So I think his race engineer was both being manipulative on the radio to try and say look, dude, you need to do this with the team, but he's also right. We win together and we lose together. We lost the British Grand Prix together. You're going to take second place together. This is Oscar's victory. I don't know. I just feel especially in the cool down room when he was kind of lashing out to Lewis a little bit,
Yeah,
it just showed a level
joking.
of immaturity. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, or not even
just
joking,
complimenting.
just being complimentary. Dude, you guys car was so fast.
It's well, yeah, you were fast the last 7 years. Okay, that's not what I was. Okay.
Right.
All right. Sorry,
he's just
dude.
tossing his hat on the ground. It was giving peak Rosberg and Hamilton rivalry vibes, but
Hamilton's too old for that.
Yeah, dude. He just wants to go pet Roscoe.
I know, right? He wants to go home. Yeah, no.
So yeah, that's my loser. And also I think to put the icing on top of the cherry on top is Lando has lost Lando has not won any race that he's started from pole, and
he also hasn't been ahead out of the first corner.
He hasn't been ahead after the first 300 yards.
Right.
Dude, you have to get this done, and listen to me coaching him on what he needs to do, but I know what I'm talking about. I just feel like if you want to win a race on merit, you need to lead from pole through the first corner. You can't keep giving it up.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's a McLaren thing or I know clearly Piastri had a better start than Lando did, so I don't know. But yeah, Max has got that thing dialed in on starts, and he has for years. So I don't know. I don't know if it's a McLaren start issue or if it's something that Lando really just needs to figure out on his own. I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, I can see what you're saying here with Lando. Yeah, immaturity, and I'm sure he'll learn from it. I'm sure he'll probably, if that McLaren's fast, he'll probably win Belgium. But, we'll see what happens next week.
Yeah, that would be the best way to respond to this, is to go out there, get pole at Belgium, and win the race without questionable strategy calls. That's the way you put all this to bed. We'll be back here in 2 weeks' time talking about how Lando raced a great race,
Yep, and deservedly won.
Race. Exactly. That's what we want.
Should we get through the standings?
Yeah, go ahead.
Real quickly. Let's see. Driver standings. Max leads at 265, followed by Lando, 189, followed by Carlos, Oscar, Piastri. Ooh, Piastri's caught up to Carlos, huh? It's 5 points behind Carlos Sainz. Hamilton P6, Perez P7, Russell P8, followed by Fernando Alonso, Lance Stroll. That rounds out your top 10. Nico Hulkenberg is 11th, Yuki 12. They're tied. Daniel Ricciardo 13th, Behrman 14th, Gasly, Magnussen, Albon, Ocon, Guan Yu, Sargent, and Bottas. Those last three have 0 points. Sargent moved up ahead of Bottas. Oh, all right.
Yeah, that happened,
at
after
Silverstone?
Yeah, Silverstone, because he finished P11.
There you go.
Or was it Silverstone or Austria? Something like that.
Yeah, I think it was Silverstone.
Silverstone, yeah.
Team standings, constructors, Red Bull, 389 with McLaren moving into second after this weekend at 338. So they're, 61 points behind, inching in.
Yeah.
Ferrari at 320.
They gained a lot of points this weekend.
Oh, yeah. Ferrari at 322, Mercedes at 241. And then the rest, Aston Martin at 69, Red Bull, Honda, Red Bull Powertrain / VCarb / AlphaTauri / Toro Rosso at 33 points, Haas 27, Alpine 9, Williams 4, and Kick Sauber Ferrari at 0.
Yeah, so I guess now that I'm looking at it, Ferrari and Mercedes, we were talking about their finishing positions for the race. They both gained 20 points for the constructors combined this weekend.
So a push.
So, yeah, no gain or loss for either of those two teams. But I think the key takeaway here is McLaren had 43 points on the weekend and Red Bull had 16. McLaren continued to close that gap. I think the Constructors' Championship is going to be critical this year. It's going to be really close. McLaren look very fast right now. Let's see how that continues.
Yeah, we got one more race before the summer break, and yeah, I really hope McLaren closes the gap a little bit more, put some more pressure on Red Bull. It'd be fun to see for the second half of the season. But yeah, I think that's all I got for this week.
Right, we'll be back in 2 weeks for Belgium, and then there'll be the summer break.
Yeah. Well, thank you for listening to The Pit Lane. This has been your host, Jordan Wynn Alden Kwell, and we'll see you for the next episode after Spa.
See you then.